Yes, we are yet again. Which of course means if you're watching live, it is a Wednesday and it is noon Eastern time. It is time for the High Noon Hemp Show. Of course, you can find us in many places. Video, of course, either live or on demand. You got the Temptations Beach Facebook page. You have the Jedi Hemp YouTube channel, and you have the Temptations Twitter page as well. If you don't want to do all that, see the video and the cool pictures and us and what we're wearing and my awesome hat and Beach's what are you wearing? You don't want to see any of that. You just want to hear us and our awesome voices. You can do that as well. There's a podcast. Search the High Noon Hemp Show on Podbean, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify as well. And you can find us there. Maybe you're on a road trip. Maybe you listen to us while you're exercising. I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do, as long as you're watching or listening to the High Noon Hemp Show. I am Stoner Jesus. He is Beach, high above the Temptations in Sharonville at the Hemp Quarters. Beach, how are things this week in the world of Temptations?
It's true that all viewing or listening to the High Noon Hemp Show is voluntary, completely up to you.
Right.
No laws have been passed yet to make it mandatory. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to or watching the High Noon Hemp Show today. It's been fun. I don't know what that means, honestly. This might be the last nice day is what I really meant to say to myself in my head. But it is true that I am high above the Temptations in Sharonville for the High Noon Hemp Show. Got a decent one, not too crazy. This week, I don't think there was, it's kind of a slow news week for hemp. So, but we'll run through it, we'll get to it, and we'll have fun one way or another, and maybe you might learn something. Because that's what we try to do here at the High Noon Hemp Show every week.
Indeed.
At High Noon is educate you on hemp, what's going on everywhere around the world, everything that we can. And remember, the FDA has not evaluated this show for safety or efficacy. So remember that, okay? Well, let's jump right into it. We got a little bit of a theme on the product spotlight this week when we say 4 from the store, 1 from my door. I suppose this is kind of going to be a barky segment. So if you have a dog or you know someone that does, these might be products for them. These are the higher elevation hemp toys. And these are just a couple of the hemp toys that we have around in the shops. I know I need to get re-upped a little bit to get some of the other ones in, so we'll do that soon enough. But again, if your dog's going to be chewing on a fiber, don't you want it to be all natural or no chemicals used to grow it and all those good things? Well, that's what hemp gets you. That's what hemp will get your dog when they chew it up. My dog, eats a lot of that stuff, although we do have a hemp leaf around here somewhere that she didn't quite eat, which I can't believe. Maybe need a little dog salve, little skin ailments here and there or something. How about some Merry Hempster's organic dog salve? Again, you're going to put it on your dog. You want it to be clean, just as clean as something you would use on yourself. So how about some organic dog salve? I know Josie every once in a while gets little sores and stuff like that, and she can always use a little salve. And don't panic, it's organic. There used to be like t-shirts and hats for a long time. And I think that might actually come from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm not positive. I know Don't Panic does, but I don't know if Don't Panic, It's Organic does. Don't Panic was a big theme for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Back to the show. How about some, we just got a fresh batch of these in. I don't know if I showed them or not, but it's the Homestead Cbd Treats. And so you've got a small breed and a large breed option for the treats. These are definitely some of the treats that we use on a semi-regular basis. We kind of mix it up with all the CBD treats that we have in the stores as to what we give the dog. And we use these for Josie as mostly to calm her thunderstorms and things like that, if nothing else. She's completely relaxed right now because I gave her some CBD treats. So hopefully she won't bark during the show. She's so out of it, she didn't even raise her head up when I talked about her. And in the last How about some Planet Everywhere dog jackets? Now, these are just little, so you'd have to have a little doggy, I think, to make these work for the winter, but the cold weather is coming. The cold weather at night is here. These are located at the Sharonville location. And again, these are more for a smaller, medium, small dog, one way or another, but made right here at the Planet Everywhere manufacturing facilities back in the day when we were doing that. And the last one, speaking of the little Josie, there's nothing little about her. How about this is also made here at Planet Everywhere, but these actually, what I did is, these slide onto the collar, and they're basically just like a little scarf, little neck bandana kind of thing. But she is a hemp dog. She wears hemp every day. Her collar has been made out of hemp since she was born. And she has some hemp jackets, no doubt about it. And this is, well worn. It's somewhat dirty and probably been washed a couple times. And usually, again, we shouldn't wear them in the summers because that was not cool. But she'll start wearing these more in the winter, one way or another. So there you have it on the product spotlight. 4 from my store, 1 from Josie's door here on the High Noon Hemp Store, Hemp Show. I'm losing track. Getting so excited about having a new category, Josie's door. Now I'm going to have to build her like a house out of hemp wood so we can actually have a Josie's door.
There you
go. Hemp door, anyway. She's got plenty of hemp stuff.
Absolutely. That, of course, brings us to, speaking of someone who has plenty of hemp stuff, you'll probably never come across another person anywhere at any time that has more hemp products, more hemp clothing than Beach does. So since the beginning of the show, over 4 years ago now, every single week, we do the Beachwear segment where I ask Beach a very important question. And in visual and audio form, he explains to us exactly what he is wearing, because I asked him straight up, what are you wearing, Beach?
That's true. Out of the huge closet of hemp clothing, every week we try to bring you a little segment called What Are You Wearing, Beach? And today it's green. It's a green themed. Breaking out my PhD Pro Hemp hat, one of my favorites over the years. The Nike jacket. Now, this Nike jacket didn't actually ever make it to the shelves that I know of, or if it did, it was a very limited run. It's part of the, they were promotional, or they were, working on designs, and the natural part there is clearly the same hemp that they used in a couple of the pairs of shoes. The really expensive, exotic hemp Nike shoes that I have use this same kind of weave in it. And again, I don't think the jacket's ever made it. I also have a Nike hemp hat that never made it actually into production, but did make it into my closet. One way or another. The t-shirt. This is actually printed by me. I guess the way original Planet Everywhere manufacturing. Of course, this was when basically you could print your own iron-ons like 15 years ago. And so I was kind of making my own Hemptation shirt. At the end of the segment, I'm going to show you, I forgot to send it, I think. But basically, it's like newsprint letters on the back. And that was how, it was, and then I ironed them on. So it says, use more hemp or the planet gets it. So it looks like a ransom letter on the back. And I did take a picture of it, but I think I forgot to send it over to you. So anyway, again, this is a Hemptown, good old classic Hemptown t-shirt. Man, I wish I had some more of these that I had saved over the years. That's for sure. My cargo pants are INI, originally purchased at thehempist.com. And my underneath it all, don't forget the old Green Springs Technology pen sticking out of the pocket there as always. Underneath it all is a classic pair of head case boxers. And then the socks are just a plain pair of Satori, and then a pair of Adidas shell toes. Now, these shell toes are, I don't know, probably a good 10, 15 years old as well, possibly. But I found them brand new in the box when I was moving some stuff. And so they're like a brand new pair of shoes to me. Uh, so I'm kind of super excited about that, one way or another. So there you have it. If you're super curious and you're always wondering, well, what are you wearing, Beach? Now you know here on the High Noon Hemp Show
Indeed.
what I am wearing today.
I have to ask, because I'm sure people were wondering, is there significance to the dots, or are they just on there?
Oh, those were bullet holes. So those were when again, if you remember back in that day, it was somewhat popular to put like fake bullet holes on everything, like trucks. You know, you always see like fake bullet holes on
Yeah.
trucks and stickers. And so those are actually supposed to look like bullet holes. Um, you know, because they're always taking a shot at the old Hemptations back at the day. So that was kind of my kind of inside joke with that. Thanks for asking and noticing the mock bullet hole. I also call this part of the private beach collection.
Yeah, I saw that at the bottom of the shirt.
Yeah, so this is Mark Private Beach. For those, if you want a detail of where Private Beach comes from, I actually have a tattoo on my waistline of like an old beach sign, and it just says Private Beach on it. It looks like it's kind of sticking out of my pants. So that's where the Private Beach came from. You know, I always thought it was funny. If I would have been in the military, I would have been Private Beach at some point or another, probably. But you know, that's why I always joke that my password is private. Don't try to use private on any of my passwords. I don't do that. But I always thought that was a great joke too. My password is private. Yeah, okay. Type in private, and that works. Anyway, fun with hemp clothing. You know, make your own if you have to. It's so easy to do these days. And don't try to come out with a Private Beach line of clothing. That's mine too.
That's right.
And someday I'll actually add more of that too. The clothing I try to stay away from when it comes to manufacturing because it is so darn hard. So I appreciate all those hemp clothing makers out there so much for venturing into the clothing and the fashion world, because it's a tough one. It's a tough one. You know, ever since they added clothing to the necessities of life,
Yeah.
there's probably been too much made. It's true. It's true. All right, let's get on to the little bit of news I have, a little bit of events, and get everybody on their day. If you're in the area, or I don't know if it's going to be true where you are, but you want to be outside today, at least in the Cincinnati area, because it's supposed to at least get up to be somewhat nice, and this might be the last night. Although we're getting a little bit of rain, but still almost supposed to be 80 here. Might be the last day we see even close to 80 for a while. All right. So, you know, this is really awesome that Charlotte's Web, again, I was talking a lot about Charlotte's Web last week, and I've talked a lot about them over the years, because without them, I don't know if industrial hemp would have been made legal, or the CBD industry would be helping so many people, millions. I venture to say millions of people now. But they are the first CBD sponsorship to be signed with the Major League Baseball Association. Of course, they're just now starting the pennant races, I believe, playoffs and pennant, leading up to the MLB World Series. I did mention earlier how the MLB was going to start doing in one of my shows earlier this year about how they were going to start taking sponsorships. Well, the first one has been granted, and it is going to Charlotte's Web. So, you know, they deserve it. They definitely deserve the national recognition one way or another, because again, they are a huge reason that anything exists at all in the CBD world. And good for the MLB. for jumping on board and understanding and not demonizing and making CBD this bad thing when I am guessing that more and more baseball players are using more and more CBD one way or another, whether it's pre-game, post-game, whatever, I don't know. Um, and so good for them. And ironically, in the same week, we see that Steve Garvey, who is a Hall of Fame baseball player, World Series winner, he has at least one World Series ring that I know of. He now just this week was endorsing a CBD topical. And so he's definitely from the generation of people that I think can benefit, honestly, the most. Of course, I say that, and he's probably close to the same age as me when I say that, because he was like in early '80s, late '70s, early '80s ball player. No, so he's a little older than me. But I, and we've kind of saw it. See, when COVID kind of took a lot of our older generation business away, and we're seeing a little bit of it start to come back and whatnot. But I definitely think that like 50 plus, you have so many benefits to using CBD or hemp seed oil, both for that matter, as far as your diet goes, and dealing with everything from anxiety to pain relief. That's what our majority of our customers use it for. I am not making any medical claims. I am not a doctor. I am just telling you that most of our customers buy CBD for anxiety or pain relief due to its anti-inflammation properties. I think what we're, and of course we're seeing a lot more of this, and we have the perfect product in the happiness cream for that. We're seeing a lot of it being added to what they call anti-aging, which I hate, but basically, once again, because our customers see so much success from its anti-inflammation properties, I mean, of course, it's going to take puffiness away, just a little bit under your eyes and whatnot. I should be using it before the show, touch myself up, make myself look really young. I said, real, make myself look really young. um, that's where we're seeing all these, a lot of the body products, adding it to lotion is great to target a area where you need it. You're better off to have hemp seed oil based lotion for just general use. But if you need that, if you want that anti-inflammation properties, then you use the CBD lotion. If you just want your skin to look great, then the nutritional value of hemp seed oil is really all you need. And I really wish that again, all of these athletes, and I get that athletes for sure, because they're using it, actors and actresses and celebrities, making skin creams and I mean, Martha Stewart, uses it at nighttime in something, and they're all admitting that they use the CBD, to keep young, but they should look into the benefits of the hemp oil and use that too, and there's no reason not to. Stop using petrochemically based CBD lotion and thinking that's what you want to do. That makes zero sense, in all honesty. But anyway, so there was an article, and it was, and this is so unbelievably cool in the long run, because of course I've always known, and I was just expecting. I didn't really, kind of glazed over it at first. Because I was just expecting maybe one or two of these yarn companies to have hemp in them, but this actual list of hemp yarn companies, it was the 12 best, but it was really just 12 hemp yarn companies. So it's huge, including Hemptique, which is a company that we sold a lot of, and I should have back on the shelves. This is on the screen now is the Rowan brand. That's for my brother. Rowan, they call it Rowan Hemp Tweed. There was Lion Brand, Just Hemp, Citrafel. I'm going to try to get this list of of hemp yarns up on the website because there's so many. Eco Stitch hemp yarn, Darn Good Yarn Hemp, Wonky Weaver Natural Hemp Yarn. Some fun names. Trade Craft Recycled Hemp and Silk, Eco Stitch Hemp, Heaven Hemp 100% Hemp. And so it's so you want your yarn to be made out of hemp because whatever you make out of it then is going to last exponentially longer than if that yarn is made out of cotton. They say 4 to 6 times stronger is hemp oil. Now, most of these probably exist, and I don't know ever happened. I ordered one time. I actually ordered some Martha Stewart hemp yarn on Amazon, and it never came in. I never got my Martha Stewart hemp yarn. This was 5-10 years ago, probably. I remember it was pretty early in the Amazon days. I think probably 5 years ago at least. But now there's a multitude of options to find your hemp yarn. And again, I think a lot of that probably came out of the fact that 3 or 4 years ago, yarn or crocheting and things like that were really, really kind of big. It was kind of a hobby that people were picking up. Younger people were picking it up. I think it's kind of dwindled, but I think out of that hopefully stemmed all these hemp yarns, which are great options, as opposed to cotton yarn. Your yarn made from cotton. And again, I need to get with Hemptique. We carried the Hemptique brand for years, and they do a great job, and they have some really cool stuff. Check them out. I'm sure they have a website online where you can go and check out all the products that Hemptique makes, yarn and clothing, shoes. They had a lot of different stuff there for a while. And if you remember the old Ecolution patterns, scarves and things like that, I think they were kind of starting to do that again too, maybe. I'm not sure if they were the same people or not. But I know that some of that stuff still existed, which leads me to believe that I don't know, I wonder where because man, I had some of those, I'm sure. I feel like I had an orange hat and scarf even made by Ecolution from back in the day. But I don't know why I don't know where that is. Oh, well. I have worn Patagonia stuff on the show before, and here is the Patagonia Iron Forge Hemp Chore Coat. Now, this was a list of their 12 favorite chore coats, okay, which I guess is an official term for this style of coat. I don't know how many people in the world really need one of these to do their chores. I do live on a farm, so I will have to say that a chore coat does kind of make sense. But either way, it's a popular look. We'll just call it that. Now, again, this is the Patagonia Iron Forge. There were 2 other companies on the list, but they didn't mention that they had hemp in their chore coats. But I know that there were 2 other companies that I recognize from talking about on the show. As far as products, Taylor Stitch was one and Everlane was the other. But they didn't mention that their chore coats had hemp in them. But I do know they do put hemp in their stuff. Patagonia has been using even some American-grown hemp in a line of their clothing for 2 or 3 years now, at least. I think since about 2018, the last Farm Bill was passed. I think that's when Patagonia kind of signed on with farmers here in the United States, and then they were still importing, I believe, or using, I don't know where they manufacture. We might want to check that out. But they were using hemp in a line of some of their clothing prior to that as well, which more than likely, no, I'm gonna say that we can only hope it came from South America. We don't know. I might have to look into that as to where they import their hemp fiber from. But they do use American-grown fiber as well. I have a pair of shorts and a hat, I think both, that have American-grown hemp in them from Patagonia. And of course, they make really, really good stuff. In all honesty, they make outdoor gear for outdoor use. Whether you ever actually use it outdoors or not is another thing. That's for sure. Uh, this is like huge. I probably should have led the news with this. If you know how excited I get about building houses out of hempcrete, and how excited the world is to build houses out of hempcrete. This is a Tucson contractor. This is not the story, but I'm going to go ahead and do the story now since you showed it. This is a Tucson contractor, general contractor, who's actually promoting the use of hemp bricks to do stuff out in Tucson. And I just love this picture because, you got kids on hemp. That's how safe it is. There's zero harm. And, and these are some big old bags. I like they even say herd on them. And herd is kind of even a term that the hemp world has kind of come up with to describe what is also called shiv, which again is that outside part of the stalk broken up into little pieces, half inch to an inch, roughly. And then instead of using sand, which we are running out of construction sand, you put this in the hempcrete mixed with the hemp lime, and bim bam boom, you got what we call hempcrete. Now again, this contractor is actually promoting the use of using hemp bricks, and work. The exciting news that I was getting to is that as of 2023, hempcrete has been approved for residential building codes in 49 out of 50 states.
Wow.
Well, I'm gonna look into this a little bit just to see what the process was and how this worked out. I don't know that 50th state. I don't know. I don't want to say it's not Ohio, because a couple years ago I reported that a Cincinnati architect was denied a permit to build with hempcrete in Cincinnati in Hamilton County. Now that doesn't mean that that Ohio is unfriendly, or I don't know what state was the one that said no or didn't pass the tests or didn't get, I don't know, what you have to do to be approved. I'm sure you have to prove things structurally and this and that and all the other, one way or another. And so I'm definitely going to look into this a little bit more. But that is a huge, huge boon to the hempcrete industries. That's a huge boon. If general contractors all the way up to your largest pourers of concrete see on paper, know that it's been approved for residential building codes, then bip bam boom, let's start using more of it as much as we can. And it's right now it's still tough. If the biggest concrete company in the Cincinnati even came to the herd sellers and said, "Hey, this is how much we need," the herd sellers would say, "Woo, we need to get to growing more and more and more hemp," and that's where we need to be anyway. I feel like, again, as waste, this is total waste product. If you're growing for grain, it's waste product. If you're growing for fiber, this is waste product. If you're growing for CBD, this is waste product. There's nothing right now that we're growing industrial hemp for that the herd itself isn't waste product. It's just something at the end of the day, most of the companies throw in the corner and say, we don't have a use for this. The fiber contractors, they get that contract to sell to the fiber. They go to the processing plant. Again, at the end of the day, the fiber is extracted. The herd is extracted. It's two different piles of stuff. The fiber goes on to the companies that are going to make clothing or whatever they're going to use the fiber for. And again, that herd, that shift sits on the floor, and we know we can use it for animal bedding. We can use it for crete, I don't think you have to do much cleaning. Probably a shake. They would do like a what we call a dust shake because especially for animal bedding, you don't want that natural dust or actually a big part of what's in there is lignin. And this is one of the reasons why the plant itself is so strong, the stalk is so strong, is because it has, and lignin's like a natural glue. And that to me is a whole nother byproduct that I don't think anybody is using lignin, which is like it ends up at the end of the day when you're pulling the fiber and the herd out, the lignin turns out to be kind of a powder substance. So it's the powder. You may think it's dust, but it's really a powder, and I feel like there's a way to take that and then make a natural, somehow there's got to be a natural glue to be made out of this lignin. Or something. There's a byproduct for that, and that's something else that I don't think at the end of the day that probably, even when they take that herd and they clean it up, that lignin dust is probably something at the end of the day that literally is swept and they have no use for. They don't think they have a use for now. But I truly believe that even that dust taken off of shaking that herd to clean it up, if you're going to use it um, for animal bedding. If you're going to use it for hempcrete, I don't think you need. I think you just got to be, the right consistency of size for the most part. I think that lignin might actually benefit being mixed in with the hemp lime as a bonding agent, right back into the mix as a natural bonding agent as well. But that's just it's a hypothesis. I have done no studies, and I have no theory to prove it. But the hypothesis says that lignin has plenty of byproducts or benefits that we could be using from. We get lignin from hemp as well, and so at the end of the day, we should be using it more and more. So now we can start promoting the use of hempcrete, and again, we're going to see more and more of it being used. The construction companies, whether they want to admit it or not, just like the petrochemical companies want to admit it or not, know that there is an end game for their product. There will be a day, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in my kid's lifetime, but probably in his kid's lifetime, there will be a day where the news will say the last construction sand was taken from the ground. The last ounce of oil that was made millions and millions and millions of years ago is taken from the ground. And this is nothing that it's not a doomsday or prophecy. Science says that this is the case, and they know it. And so again, looking for more eco-friendly building materials is that movement. That's why they want it. Just like looking for more eco-friendly vehicle fuels or ways of petroleum moving vehicles or anything is the future. It's not because we gotta. It is a little bit because we got to save the planet, but it's more because they know that there's only so much out there. That's the science. That's the truth of it. And so of course they have to start looking for alternatives. What's really funny is it's like they want to resist because they don't want to be like seen as weak because they're eco-friendly, but yet they know they have to come up with these substitutes, one way or another. And so, only the chemical companies too want to keep growing cotton. By the way, the farmers don't want to grow cotton. The world doesn't want to grow cotton. Only the chemical companies that supply a third of all the agricultural chemicals in the world want anybody to really grow in cotton. They sure don't want hemp because guess what, man? All that goes away. Billions of dollars of herbicides and pesticides and water and soil destroying chemicals, all for the sake of clothing, would go away, and we'd have a 4 to 6 times stronger fiber without having any of that. That's why I don't understand why cotton farmers wouldn't really be looking into not growing cotton, but growing hemp. They're saving themselves the cost of having to buy any chemicals when growing for fiber. It requires no chemicals when growing for fiber. They should be doing it. It seems so weird that they don't, but it's tough to convince people of the truth sometimes, even though, and it's even tougher to convince them of the truth when the truth doesn't sound like it's real. Like, you talk to a cotton farmer, like, no way I can grow something that's 4 to 6 times stronger than this without any chemicals. I mean, like, I just cannot believe that. I cannot in a million years believe that. And again, that's because the agricultural industry, which was taken over by the corporations in the 80s, has got them all convinced that there's no alternative. Um, even though every day we're finding more and more alternatives, one way or another. Uh, that's science as well, and hemp is the alternative. Um, and I don't, I've never really tried to sugarcoat it. I've only tried to tell people the truth. The Canadians make plenty of money growing hemp for grain, so why not American farmers? The Chinese, I don't know if they make a whole lot of money to their people, but they have a huge industry of farming based on growing for hemp fiber. Why not American farmers? Why not worldwide farmers for that matter? And most of the world is actually pretty hip. We were the last industrialized country. The United States was the last industrialized country in 2014 to make industrial hemp legal. Again, to me, it's just like, that was almost 10 years ago, and I still can't believe that it was in 2014 that the United States was the last industrialized country to be letting their farmers grow hemp, one way or another. And so, the hempcrete thing is massively huge, and it's one of the draws almost some of the most interest at the end of my speeches over the last 5 years or so. The more that the hempcrete, we're showing use and proof of, and buildings and things using it. It gets to so many questions, so many interests on that subject alone. And so, and again, housing, there will never be a lack of building houses, needing houses. Human population is never gonna, we're at a point now that if our human population declines enough to even notice that we have too much housing, then we're all in trouble. This pandemic couldn't do it. There's not too much housing out there right now because of the pandemic. It would take an unbelievable Holocaust or something really worldwide tragedy to ever have an overage in housing in this world. That's science too. that is, where we have billions and billions and billions. We're up to 7.5 billion now. I think we're slowly approaching 8 billion people on the planet. I think I can't keep track because it's a lot. But it is what it is, and there's plenty of room, and there's plenty of ways to make sure that the planet can sustain all of us humans stepping on it every day. We just got, I'm just like most of us, just be a little smarter about it. Be a little, we're smart enough humans. I was thinking on my way to work today that, we're the smartest animal on the planet that does the dumbest things. Just, and that is the truth of human nature, human society, humanity. We're the smartest animals on the planet. We do the dumbest things. Or that do the dumbest things, I should say. There's plenty of smart animals, and I'm not calling all the animals dumb. But most of the animals out there don't do the dumb things that we do. That's for sure. One way or another. Um, let's see here. The first crops in Idaho went fairly well. They had about 500 acres total in the state. Again, like 2022 was the first year that you could legally grow industrial hemp in Idaho. About 500 acres, 500 total acres. There was they took in the article that I read, 70 of the acres was for fiber. They contracted with a company in Illinois to grow the fiber. They had a place for it to go, and they were done. They said it went super smooth, but they did have some problems um, having it wrap around the auger that they were going through the field with. Again, if they would have known to use that sickle bar that the fiber grower used, I was talking about last week. So, it's a vibrating sickle bar that basically goes at the bottom of the plant, um, and cuts it off straight. And they said it went through the fields like butter, or a hot knife in butter. I think that if you try to use something that turns like this, or even something that with the combine, and that's what we're seeing is then you get that, you can get a little bit of it, that fiber. Once again, once it starts to wrap, it's so strong and whatnot that I can definitely see how that is an issue in anything spinning when it would be harvesting industrial hemp. And basically what's really shows you how strong this plant is in the field and how resilient it is. There was a grain grower, grew 80 acres of grain, and he wanted to do a dual crop, but he wanted to do fiber as well. But when he harvested the grain with his combine, I believe, he said that it mangled the stalks so badly that they couldn't use them somehow. Um, now, the fiber farmer said they're jumping up to 200 to 300 acres next year. It wasn't big of a deal. The grain farmer says that he's just going to make a couple little bit of tweaks for next year, and he is going to go back to the idea of a dual crop, but change the way that he harvests the plant at the end of the year. Which to me, I guess if you could come along and cut the tops off for the grain, and then go along and cut the bottoms off, that might be the only way to do it. It'd be interesting if you could just cut the whole thing off and then run it through so the grain is still collected and then the stalks are still collected. And that kind of machinery needs to be invented. A piece of tractor machinery that maybe you pull behind or whatever, or a combine attaches to a combine type of thing, but you cut it off at the bottom. It'd really be, I believe, what I would think from the descriptions of how things are going down is you really want that sickle bar, that rotating sickle bar, cutting the plant off at the root, more or less, and then it drops that whole plant onto a conveyor belt that then goes into something that captures all that grain underneath, and then you still have your stalk from as long as you want it. I think optimally, that's the piece of machinery that would make it all go more or less smoothly. And I think that once again, what the grain grower will most more likely do is figure out how to get the grain first, take the grains off the plant up top, and then go back through the field with something that maybe cuts the plants off at the bottom for the fiber stalk, so to speak. But again, these are, there are machinery basically right out of the gate that mostly works with harvesting hemp, but there's going to be machinery patented. And I mean, I know there already is machinery that has been patented or applying for patents over the last 3 to 5 years for processing hemp. Because again, we're taking old school technology, 100-year-old technology, and now, bringing it into the 22nd century, the 21st century, but whatever. Um, and this machinery is going to be in high demand eventually. And again, we can use it. We can use the machinery that we have now and get, be 90% productive, 100% productive, depending on what you're growing for. Whereas eventually we get 100% productive, and we can, it's just one piece of machinery, and it does everything you need it to do at the end of the year when harvesting your industrial hemp, to give you the advantage as a farmer to get rid of your entire harvest. Instead of just growing for grain and then having the stalks as waste. You grow both. I mean, instead of growing for fiber and having the grain, well, of course they always save the grain, because you would just save that grain for seed or whatnot, I'm sure, to grow next year's crop with. Who knows how much seed you end up with, and then you might be able to actually sell that extra seed to other people that are interested in growing for fiber, but they want that fiber seed specific to the fiber. And so, it's all there. It's all there at the end of the year. And of course, just like with, and I've said, CBD is different, because then you have the flower, you're harvesting for the flower, but that stalk is still it's still got fiber in it. It's still got a herd to build houses with, one way or another. And so I think the piece of machinery that I would put a patent on right now, if I could, once again, would be something that can go through the field and cut the plant off, and then capture the entire plant. And just take that whole plant, make sure that all that grain stays there, and everything stays together, and then you just take it back to the barn, and the grain is separated already. So it cuts it off, maybe takes it up, and then shakes it so far, and then wraps it in a decortator, because again, the decortator goes like this to break the stalk up. And then it just collects everything at the bottom and sifts it. And so, your top sift is your herd, and your fiber, whatever's left there. And then your middle could be your seed shelf. And then the bottom could be that lignin, that dust, that powder that can be used for some type of natural byproduct. I guarantee it. And then again, you got it all. Get back to the barn, and you just have something that just pulls that big shelf of fiber and herd out and puts it where it needs to go. Pull it out, and you got this big pan of seed, huge big pan of seed, and you dump that where you want to dump it, which needs to be, from my understanding, put into somewhat decent, proper conditions. And I think the biggest concern is moisture when it comes to harvesting the seed and storing the seed. Because if you don't do it right, I just reported recently that a farmer said that, there's a timeline there that needs to be paid attention to. But again, if your piece of machinery shakes that seed and gets it super clean, then, you just have to go throw it in a silo that stays dry, I believe, or whatever. And so, that to me is the piece of machinery. Now that piece of machinery exists in warehouses. I showed the super hemp breaker machine, in like 200 feet long or something. I think it was patented in Germany originally, or over in Europe. But basically, again, you just take your whole hemp plant, and you put it in the front of this machine, and it runs it all the way through this machine and separates everything that can be separated. Okay. If you could come up with the machine that could do that on a somewhat large scale in the field, that's the perfect machine ever when it comes to hemp harvesting, honestly. Because, then the hemp farmers, no matter what they're growing for, they have this machine. And then guess what? At the end of the year, instead of just looking at it as waste, and saying, oh, I've got this, and I know I can do this with this, and people can do this with this. And yes, I know I've got my grain sales. I've already got that contracted to sell. I can work out a fiber contract beforehand, possibly. I think that these fiber contracts that are being signed now with hemp farmers is they want fiber specific hemp plants grown. They don't want to know that you're growing for grain and then you're going to give them your fiber afterwards or whatever. Although I think the one fiber company just said all they really wanted is their hemp to be 12 feet tall. So if you could still grow you'd have to grow maybe like a 14-foot hemp plant, and then the top 2 feet would be your seed, and you get to keep that, and then you cut it down to 12 feet and you ship that to the fiber company, and bim, bam, boom. Everybody's happy, and the world is cleaner, and it's a much better place. And it's what I've been saying for years and years and years, and no one notices, because that's what it's all about here on the High Noon Hemp Show. It's true. All right, let's just see here. Just a couple events, kind of. Of course, if you're going, you're there in France for the hemp building symposiums going on today and tomorrow. October 21st, you have the Hemp Hootenanny and Harvest Market at Allen Brook Farms in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And November 3rd, you have the 3rd Annual Science of Hemp Conference. This is Production and Pest Management. And this is at the S. Good Barn in Lexington, Kentucky. I'll get some more information about that, but I know that if you want to learn about industrial hemp in this day and age, Kentucky is one of the states that you want to go to and learn about. They've been doing it as long as anybody. There will be people there that have been hemp farmers now for almost 10 years, 8 years for sure. And it doesn't seem like a long time, but that's a lifetime worth of growing hemp in today's society. And we are now 8 years into this industrial hemp, and it is getting figured out. The numbers have come down. The CBD boom has come down. Fiber and grain is going up, just like I predicted that it would. We started with literally in the United States. I would venture to say 80% of the first CBD grown over the first 5 years, 6 years or so, hemp was grown for CBD. It's not much less now, but it is less grown for CBD, more for grain and fiber, and that's the way it's going to go until finally we're going to, it could average out to where a third of it's grown for CBD, a third of it's grown for fiber, a third of it's grown for grain, and guess what? All three of those, well, no, you can't get the CBD and the grain together, but 2 out of the 3 you can do in one plant. So and that's the way it's going, and that's the way we want it to go, no doubt about it. I usually end the show with a question. I don't have any this week, or my beach thoughts, which I have already explicitly run through on this week's High Noon Hemp Show. There was, I forgot the question from last year, or last week.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it real quick.
As Donnie, I know Donnie threw a question out right at the end of the show last week. We meant to try to get to it and remember, but of course I'm only remembering it now because we're at the end of the show now.
Facebook was quicker.
We do welcome any questions. You can email me questions at Hemptations Beach on Facebook, or just hemptations@yahoo.com, which I don't check my email as much as I really should for a business person.
Here we go. I found it.
Okay.
It said about CBD and regulations and people losing their jobs for taking CBD. 0% on bottles, but a CDL will get your licenses taken away.
Well, if it says 0%, and then that should be, once again, an isolate, then, they can't, unless they're testing for CBD, which I don't believe they can do legally, to be honest with you, unless it's their policy. Now, if you work for a company and their policy is no CBD, then they can test you for CBD. It's like if their policy is no sugar, they can test you for sugar. That's drug testing is private companies' policies. There's no, government mandatory drug testing, even though they drug test If you've gone into the prison system, then you can be drug tested. Um, but drug testing is, again, that is dependent on the business that you work for and their policies. If nicotine's against it, then they can test you for nicotine. Um, so if you're using a CBD isolate, they can say whatever they want and they can test you. You are not going to test positive for THC Delta 9, which is what they test for and they say is illegal. That's the one that's illegal. That's what fails the test 99% of the time. Again, if you're in a state where CBD is illegal, or you work for a business where CBD is illegal, and they test you, then yes, they could do that. Now, again, and that's where I mentioned over the years the difference between full spectrum, which has that allowable amount of THC in it, isolate, which has zero THC. You can take as much isolate CBD as you want, pass a test. They won't. Your CDL will be fine. They can't not do anything about that. In all honesty, and then you have broad spectrum, which also is no THC. So broad spectrum is CBD, and then they put the terpenes and some of the others, CBG or whatever, natural occurring isolates that are there back into it, but there's 0.00% THC. So the only thing that can possibly fail a drug test is full spectrum CBD. And again, you would have to consume, I would say at a minimum, 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of full spectrum CBD on a daily basis. And I would be hard pressed to think that would still give you 50 nanograms of CBD to fail a test, or even 20 milligrams, which is the lowest. Now, for a CDL or driving, they may, that might be that lowest 20 nanograms. But even then, it would take just an unbelievable amount of full spectrum CBD to fail a test to begin with. But it's not a lie that when they say if you take a full spectrum, it's possible to have too much THC and you could fail the test. That's not a lie. The chances that are happening are super super low. And so, either way, yes, if you're in any industry, and their policy is wherever you work, 0.00% THC, then use the isolate, use the broad spectrum, stay away from full spectrum, and you'll be fine. You get to keep your CDL and keep driving, or keep your job and keep driving. I thought it was kind of funny that the Air Force announced now that you can fail a drug test and get another chance. Flying high gives you a whole new meaning to flying high. And I leave you with that, folks. And I do appreciate you watching or listening to the High Noon Hemp Show. If you're watching live, thank you. If you're watching later, thank you. We'll be back next week. And remember, reduce, reuse, recycle. Make everything else out of hemp. Having temptations.
See you all next week.